All right, cool. So, yeah, I'm excited for everyone to come along today because I know a lot of you probably have a lot of questions and about what to eat, how do I get in the best shape that I can, and it's not an information problem. I think a lot of us agree because there's information everywhere, isn't it? And the information can be quite contradictory at times, quite confusing at other times. So if it's not an information thing, then what is it? Okay, so this is what I'm hopefully going to break down for you tonight. So my promise to you really is to give you, hey Lorraine, is to give you a breakdown as to, okay, the things that, because we're going to cover off a lot of things you guys probably have tried. I mean, who has tried different diets or different ways in the past to lose weight or get in shape, that sort of thing, right? You've probably made a few of the mistakes I'm going to point out tonight for you, and it's just to give you a bit of clarity. So in that way, as we step forward from tonight, you know what the next steps are for you. And that's really what my first objective is. My other objective is that, at the end of it, if you don't mind, I will present something where you guys can work with one of us. And, if you want to do that, great. In fact, what I want you guys to identify by the end of the night is that, is this something where you can take some of the learnings and then apply it and do it with yourself in the meantime? That's absolutely fine. That's good. That's an achievement. That's a goal. That's something that would be great. For some of you, you might get to the end of the night and go, yeah, actually, I need help with this. So either way, it's fine. It is all about you guys being able to get what you're after. Now, metabolic mastery. Why is it called metabolic mastery, not like the next weight loss thing or, because I can easily put you guys all on something that can lose a few kilos, but then I might have to call it metabolic mess or metabolic mayhem, right? Because metabolic mastery just rolls off the tongue, right? Now, metabolic mastery, it is about getting yourself into a position with the lessons from tonight and applying the different steps here. You can actually be in control of your metabolism and be in control of your results with your body shape. I think that's really what people want to know. They want to know, okay, cool, how do I then be able to apply this to myself? All right, so what is the metabolism? It's how you look, how you feel, how you function is the net result of your metabolism. And it directly affects these three things. When you look at this triangle here, when you look at those three things, and we will move fast tonight, guys, but we are recording, so if you do miss stuff, don't worry, you can pick it up on videos later. What do most diets focus on when you look at that? How you look. That's right. What I've come to understand, I'm sure many of you guys have as well, is that whenever these two, either one or even the top one, whenever something is overlooked, when it's something is neglected in this golden triangle, then whatever results are obtained from that diet or from that program, they're always short-lived. So to have sustainable long-term results, we need to make sure that we're hitting all corners here of the golden triangle. And that is why we're talking about metabolic mastery and how that is going to help shape everything from here. So what affects our metabolism? I didn't expect you guys to be able to read that. It's just a clip I took. So it gives you an idea. 5% is basically regulating your body temperature. So right now, after today, you've probably got an air conditioner on full blast in your body right now to keep you cool. That's what body temperature regulation is doing, that 5%. The 12% is feeding. Interesting. What is that? Well, it actually takes the body to use energy to break down and assimilate nutrients from other foods. Physical activity is the last one, and that could be all sorts of different activities. It could be exercise, absolutely. It could also be just fidgeting. It could be just walking every day today. But there's one main one there, the big blue one, that covers 66%, give or take, of your general daily. So this is a measure of daily expenditure, of energy expenditure. What do you reckon that last one is there that makes up the majority of our metabolic output throughout the day? Food? Nope. So feeding's more up here. Oh, someone said it. Someone said it. Muscle mass. Good on you, Con. All right. So muscle mass is the main thing that affects your metabolism. So we won't go too hard into that today, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind as we do move through this. So it'll be quite interesting. But first, before we do really get into the nuts and bolts of things, and I won't overload you with information, of course, I just want you guys to have something that you can take away. But I want you guys to overcome any beliefs that are holding you back so far. So a few guys here, like Cindy in the middle, so these couple of guys from Ferntree Gully and before that as well, been doing this for a while, as you can see. she would have been like full-time everything. Maddie, you remember, she was like, didn't have a spare minute, yet she always found a way to feed herself and her family, and still, like, this was, she won one of our 8-week challenges. She dropped her body fat percentage here from like 24% to about 15 or 16% from memory. So wiped off at least 25% of body fat. Aaron, a few of you guys might recall, some French Gully, like, he was working part-time. He pretty much spent his whole income on just training with me. It was ridiculous. I was like, okay. But he was that dedicated. So money can't be an excuse. And so it depends what's important, what's the value of it. So when you find a way to work, you'll find a way to work. And then there's other great stories here as well. You know, we've got Neil has lost 15 kilos. Bobby was transformation winner. He's probably had the biggest transformation I've ever seen. Caden with autism, you know, has lost more than 20 kilos as well. So, which is quite interesting, a different approach. So it really comes down to, we need to remove any of the barriers, the psychological barriers, before the physical stuff even matters. And when I look at the one that I've had of recent times, you can't solve the same problems with the same mindset that cause the problems, right? So now this guy here, so this was taken about a week after Tinsy was born, and I was 86 kilos, 22% body fat. That's probably the heaviest and most out of shape I've been for pretty much ever, to be fair. And if you ask this guy, like, he was training 4 or 5 times a week, like pretty hard training, and he was eating pretty well. Like, you saw the meals, I'd bring him my containers of prep food and whatnot. But there was a dogmatic approach, and we'll get into the different styles of plans and so forth in a tick. But it had a dogmatic approach where I felt like I knew everything. And to be honest, like, if you ask this guy anything about nutrition, you probably have the answer for you, pretty much, for the most part. So what was wrong? How come I was out of shape? Well, you know, that's when it was like, I need to be, whatever's working isn't working. So I needed to open my mind to different ideas. And that's where I did take a different approach, which we'll cover as we go. And that's what led to the results that are there on the right. So if you guys are going to get anything out of tonight, you literally have to clear out your mind of any preconceived preconceived conceptions, I guess, of what works and what doesn't. Obviously, there'll be some experience there that you can refer back to, but what I want you guys to be able to do is get rid of any of these, what's holding you back, any beliefs. Genetics, my parents gave me the fat genes, right? It's too expensive to eat well, or even, you know, in other areas as well. Time, I don't have time to cook, plan, or shop. Or I'm too old. Like, my best days are behind me. You know, I've had 3 kids now. I can't, you know, that's it. You know, they've ruined my body shape forever. You know, all these different excuses. So what I want you guys, they're just some examples. I'm sure there might be some others, but what I want to see is, what belief do you guys have? And it's going to be in your booklets. It's the first one there. So I'll open it up and we'll grab ourselves out a pen and paper. Who doesn't have a pen? In turn? Yeah, a couple of guys. We'll grab them out. There we go. And a booklet as well. Now, 30 seconds. Geez, that's not a long time, Matt. I probably won't even have time to scratch my nose in 30 seconds. All right, I don't want you guys to think about this. I want you guys to just kind of clear your head, go inside of yourself, and then whatever the thing that comes, because you've already got the answer in your head. I already know it. You already know what the answer to this question is. So you've got to go inside, let it come out, and put it straight on the paper. So we've got 30 seconds, and off we go. What is the belief, or what is it that is stopping you from achieving your health and fitness goals, holding you back at the moment? Amazing. So quite a lot of pens moving there. That's beautiful. Anyone dare to share what they think it might be for them at the moment?
I put down that I do comfort anyone I'm sad.
Okay. Yes. So in terms of a belief, so that would be a response to a cue.
Maybe that'll make me feel better even that one.
Yeah. So it's probably a response to a cue on that one. So the habit loop, which we'll cover today. But yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing. Like, yeah, it just shows how there are different things that impact our decision making when it comes around food, isn't it? It's not as simple as follow this diet. It's like, well, no, we all go through different shit in our life. So how do we handle that situation? So that's very interesting. So yeah, thanks, Lorraine. Really good. We'll give it a clap, guys. So let's go. Good on you, Lorraine. Who else is as brave as Lorraine? Go. Tanya, yeah? Yes. So what's the belief holding you back there?
I'm not organised, I guess I negative self-talk.
Yeah. And well, you mentioned willpower is probably the first thing that you mentioned there, and quite often that can replace discipline. So, we say that we don't have willpower, but it's just a matter of discipline. Yeah, so that's something that you've got to train, and discipline will really come through consistency of your actions in terms of it's the confidence that you give yourself from taking that one step, then the next step, and then that's what builds discipline over time. So, yeah, so it's just the next opportunity you have to be disciplined, that's what you got to jump on. Yeah, very good. Anyone else? Thanks, Tanya. Very good. Okay, that's all right. So from here, shares, yep, that's the one there. Cool. I've just thought I'd just throw in a few answers to some of these that we brought up earlier. Genetics load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. Okay, so yes, genes can absolutely affect different aspects of whether you get illnesses and this and that. However, when you have an effective metabolism, these things really rise to the surface, whether it's being overweight, whether it's picking up any illnesses or cancers and stuff like that. Lifestyle is what pulls the trigger. It's too expensive. What's more expensive? Eating well now or paying hospital bills later on or pharmaceutical pills later on? That's a real thing. People will go, oh, it costs money. Okay, and now you've got this $10,000 surgery 15 years later, even though it's 15 years later or whatever, because you just couldn't value health and fitness at the time. I don't have time to cook, plan, prioritizing. Metabolism could save you time. When you prioritize things, when you prepare your things, when you have things organized, Tanya, you're just talking about being organized, it saves you time. Not having time or getting yourself organized can help you that. And I'm too old to get in shape. Aging actually accelerates with poorer health, right? So even if you might not be able to ever get back to what you look like when you're 20, okay, that's arguable, but it's probably there's some element of truth to it. But aging will accelerate you anyway when you're in poorer health. So why not try and reverse that as soon as possible and maintain what you have? Cool. So hopefully I've kicked out anything that's in your mind that is stopping you from pushing forward and getting the results that you're really after. So the next part is we're going to talk about making a puzzle. So now you guys have all done jigsaw puzzles, right? When you're starting a brand new jigsaw puzzle, what are the first pieces that you're trying to find? The four corners. Beautiful. Cool. Because those four corners, nothing is going to go outside of those four corners, is it? So this is what we're going to look at when it comes to our metabolism. If we're trying to do diets that cheat one of these four corners, then the diet is going to fault eventually and pretty soon. So the four corners I'll go through, these are what I like to sort of consider as the principles, and then we'll look at the rest of the puzzle in a minute. Law of thermodynamics, calories unit of energy, input versus output, absolutely. It all marries up. It's a science. There is definitely truth to it, so we can't ignore it. So we do have to make sure that if you are losing weight, calories in, calories out would determine the loss or gain of body fat. That is correct. However, calories in, calories out determine the loss or gain of what else? Muscle, correct. So this is where we've got to balance these things out correctly. Okay, and this is where we can really help you with this, get these figures right. Because if we just kind of jump straight into, law of thermodynamics, you just cut your calories and then you lose a bunch of fat. That's true, but you can also slow down your metabolism, which is the metabolic adaptation that we're talking about. So that's your hormonal response. This is why we can't ignore hormones either. So you can see here, you might see online, I don't know if you guys are as nerdy as me, but you might see online that you get two guys arguing with each other. One says it's hormones, one says it's calories. It's like, well, they're just coming from two different viewpoints. But if you have a look at the whole thing overall, they both matter. Insulin sensitivity, which is your body's ability to, with different, basically to regulate your blood sugar and utilize that stored energy. Hunger and satiety, stress, and your nervous system. So that will obviously play a big role in hormonal balance as well. Next one is cellular health, which we're looking at energy production from a more of a mitochondrial point of view. So how much energy are you able to output, particularly when it comes to like your strength, your recovery, your muscle growth. So this is our cellular health, which is really, really important. Toxicity is an important one because this will look at you've got this thing called your lymphatic system. Some of you would have heard of it, which is basically like a system that runs through your body and flushes out all the crap. Okay, that's important. That's sweating, which you all did plenty of downstairs before. That's your lymphatic system at work. And now that was probably in a more stressful state than going for a walk, but that's the idea of low intensity cardio, is to remove the toxicity to help with our cellular health. And the other one is gut health. The microbiome's been really interesting, probably taken off the last 10, 12 years, all the research there. Affects your immune system. It's basically your first line of defense for your immune system. Feel-good center, 85% of the serotonin production's in your gut, and reducing inflammation as well. So if we have poor gut health, it will affect our ability to lose weight and improve our metabolism and get the body shape that we're after. Cool, so there it is. So law of thermodynamics, gut health, cellular health, hormonal balance. So these are our corner pieces of the puzzle. Now, let's have a look at our side pieces of the puzzle. Now, when it comes to the side piece of the puzzle, this is where we're looking at the strategies that we implement. Okay, what are some strategies or some things that you may have tried before? I'll give you a quick one, like the calories in, calories out can definitely be effective, absolutely. That's one strategy, and we'll cover all these off in a minute. What are some other diet strategies that you may have tried in the past? Which one? Yeah, cutting carbs. Yeah, absolutely. So that would be like a keto would be an example of that. Yep. You guys would fasting, intermittent fasting. Absolutely. Yep.
Probably trying to keep my
protein up. Yep. Fantastic. Yep. So that would be focusing on on what matters in a macronutrient. So interesting because you haven't cancelled anything out there. Yeah, which is quite interesting. So that's a good one. Anything else? Other strategies? We'll go through a few now. Calories in, calories out, law of thermodynamics, absolutely. Gives you some flexibility of what you can eat. As long as I stay within my calories, I can eat whatever I want. Okay, well, so that's something that it does give you that ability to eat your favorite foods and still get results. We can actually measure your calories in, calories out pretty much to the day, which is really great in terms of getting to a specific weight or a specific body shape for photo shoots or comp prep. But for guys that aren't really wanting to get to that depth, you don't have to worry. You don't have to go into this sort of depth because it can be very difficult to measure when you're busy. It takes a lot of time. You know, for a 22-year-old girl who's trying to do a body shape, maybe just doing some part-time study or whatever, yeah, that's cool. But for busy mums working full-time, counting everything is just too much of a headache. It can limit your metabolic output, and there's too many variables in effect to the end result as well. So there's a lot of variables to consider, which makes it quite challenging. However, when you can get all those variables right, it can be highly effective in certain cases. Cool. So yeah, so it can be highly effective, absolutely, but it's not always the answer. So I hope that helps with some guys on that one. Intermittent fasting can be comfortable for some. Absolutely improves insulin sensitivity because, you know, your blood sugars are really low for a long period of time. I feel the most important thing about this is your digestion getting a rest, which is really important for the microbiome, really important for a lot of our hormones rebalancing themselves. And it's significant research behind intermittent fasting's effect. I've just put an asterisk there for the moment because a lot of it's in rodents, not humans. So I haven't quite jumped into that yet, but it's definitely a watch this space. Some of the drawbacks, while it's comfortable for some, might be uncomfortable for others. So if you're, for example, someone who eats breakfast every morning, starving yourself till 12 o'clock might be pretty damn uncomfortable. So you might be better off just actually continuing to do that. You know what I mean? So, and it can be difficult to meet nutrient requirements because if you do a long fast and you can only fit one meal or two meals in that day, Well, now you guys are going to see how much protein you need in a tick. Getting that protein in 1 or 2 sittings, it's pretty uncomfortable. Like, that's a lot of food to eat. Does it make sense? So there's some of the drawbacks. So keto, induces ketones as a fuel source, which obviously improves sensitivity. So we're just banning our carbs. Don't want no carbs. Carb ain't someone going to get some love from me. Marjane, a lot of you might jump in on that one. So what happens when we cut carbs? So you did mention that before, Marjane, cutting carbs. It can affect endocrine function. It's the body's preferred fuel source. So we talked about hormones before. So if you're someone who's cut carbs, then all of a sudden it's like, how come, I'm lack of energy? How come it's not working? Or how come I'm getting all these cravings? Yes, it's affecting your hormones sometimes. For some guys, they can do this and have absolutely no worries whatsoever. Other guys, it can really affect them, particularly women, and particularly during the late luteal phase of their period as well, their menstrual cycle. It will affect sport and gym performance as well, particularly if you train at high intensity. Cool. Vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian. One of the great things about this is it is phytonutrient rich, so it's going to get a lot of good nutrients in those foods. And I'm talking about real plant foods, not vegan substitutes. So these vegan burgers, stuff like that, no, they're just chemical messes. Not talking about that. Real plant food. Avoiding feedlots, quite important, because so much animal meat now just goes through feedlots. These animals are sick. They're fed food that they're not even supposed to be eating, and that ends up in us, and it's going to make us sick too if we go too much of it. That's why it's not meat that makes people sick, and even though Netflix might want to try and push that on us, but it's more so the type of food that you're eating. Does it make sense? And some people, they also vegetarian for religious reasons as well. So can definitely be effective in getting some really good nutrients into the body, but the drawback is the deficiencies. Most people that you would see that go for these diets find it very difficult to get the amount of protein they need. Sometimes omega-3 as well, like the marine source, EPA, DHA. Obviously, pescatarian doesn't have that problem. So long-term, it can be quite a challenging one to stick to. So you have to really plan it out well. So you can do it, but you've got to find a way to overcome these deficiencies when you do it. Carnivore is the other way. Simplicity, all you got to do is eat meat. Beautiful. My joke's getting worse, meat me. Protein dense with amino acid rich. Okay, that's quite opposite to before, where we're getting all of our essentials, improving insulin sensitivity because there's no carbs, obviously, in the meat. The deficiencies, especially for guys that might be doing more endurance type training, phytonutrients, carbohydrate, that deficiency, depleting muscle glycogen, that can affect performance, particularly in the gym. Low fiber can affect it sometimes too. Fiber's kind of on that bell curve in terms of how much you need. But the big one here, phytonutrients, vitamin C. So if you're putting your body under stress, like our little cyclist guy here, having those antioxidants to fight off free radical stress that's caused by stress is quite important. So vitamin C obviously is a very strong antioxidant. Juice diets can ease digestive discomfort, often phytonutrient rich because they're greens, so kind of whipped up greens. This is the main reason why I would say this is a good idea, is to really, someone who's having digestive issues, this can really help. Same with something like a FODMAP. They're usually your two sort of digestion issue diets that you go to help relieve those symptoms. The problem with this one, a couple is the metabolic slowdown, I find. That's that arrow going right down because you're just really lacking nutrients. So yes, juices, you'll probably lose weight pretty quick because your calorie intake is so low. But in terms of the metabolism, it smashes the metabolism with the metabolic slowdown. So that's why it's only very short term. Use it short term to kind of ease or for some different purposes as well, but digestion is a good one. And it can also impact enzyme production. So this is only very short term you might use that one for. So going through all those, there's some examples, some popular options. If you guys have tried some of those before, hopefully that gives some clarity as to, okay, yeah, now I can understand why this may have worked, why this may not have worked, and whether you can relate. Maybe you might not have done any of those diets specifically, but you can kind of relate it to some of the things that you're trying to do and that you're finding might be working, may not be working as well. So it's all about identifying that yourself. So then, Matt, what diet do we choose then? Like, Interesting. Good question. So that's you, that's me, and you ask me the question, and here I am. I'm like, all right, well, to find the side pieces, which is the strategies, we need to know what puzzle picture looks like, which is your life. Okay, so now we need to identify, okay, well, how do we know where the puzzle pieces go? Well, we need to know what that looks like. So this is where we go, holy crap, lifestyle. All right, there's a lot to do with lifestyle. It pretty much covers everything that we do. History of food. So, you know, I used breakfast as an example before. Some foods you might be quite habitual for you. Some foods you might not like, you know, this and that. Health conditions. Well, obviously, if there's certain health conditions that allow you to or disallow you to eat some foods, it's going to be a big consideration. I mentioned sort of the cycles with females before. Physical activity, you know, are you highly active? Are you less active? When are you active? All these things. Stress and sleep obviously going to have a huge impact as well, particularly on our hormones, which we're going to cover soon. And stickiness is basically your ability to stick to it. That's probably the main thing as well. So you can see here, there's so many pieces of the puzzle. If you're finding that dieting is something that you haven't quite got down pat, you can see why it's bloody hard. And you can see why it's not something that you can just go, yeah, cool, I'll just do this and do this, and then go, whoops, and then get these great results. You can do it for a short time, but to get a long-term effect or long-term results, we've got to consider a lot of different factors, and I'm sure I haven't even got everything here. Cool. So what we're going to do now is we've got our next action task. We're going to bring open our books again. We're going to write down all the foods, and I'm not going to take too long here, but just write down all the foods that you consumed more than once in the last week. Oh, yeah. You can take a seat wherever you like, guys. That's absolutely fine. All right, so basically 90 seconds. I don't have a stopwatch, so I'm just going to wait and watch everyone's pens move really fast, but you're just trying to knock out every single thing that you've eaten that you can recall in the last week or so. Or things that you eat regularly. Alrighty, starting to see a lot more thinking than writing now. So, all right, anyone sort of wants to take a little bit more time, or you've got enough there? You don't have to write absolutely everything. It's absolutely fine. You can always come back to these things as well, guys. So we'll continue to push through. Very good. Now what I want you guys to do is, we won't even take 2 minutes. I just want you to take sort of the top 3 food choices there that are going to move you towards your goals, and then the top 3 that are moving you away from your goals. So just quickly just find the top 3 relatively, even if it's top 1, 2 or 3. But we're just looking at segregate. They'll be on the next page, guys. So what we do is we flip the page over, we have a look. Okay, cool. What are the 3 best choices I've made? And what are the 3 choices that I made more than once in the last week that are probably not going to help me get the body shape that I'm after? Anyone want to share? Tic Tacs? Kit Kats, yeah. Kit Kats was not as much anymore, but I used to be a real bad one for Kit Kats as well. I used to eat, I have a really bad sweet tooth, so yeah, Kit Kats was one of the favourites for a little while, right? Gin and tonic, yeah, absolutely. If you're unsure on moving away or moving toward, that's fine. You can leave that out of that graph for the moment because we can work that stuff out later. But yeah, I'm sure there's a couple of obvious ones. Anyone else? One more? Throw them out there. Let's go. We've got a couple away. Yeah, go another away. Well, let's admit our guilt. Chocolate ice cream, yes, absolutely. You're welcome. Thanks, Kat. Beautiful. Cool. So what we're going to do now, and you can do this is just a quick sort of, I won't take too long tonight with it because we spent a lot more time with this during the Metabolic Mastery, but it's just giving you guys a little bit of a run into, okay, some of the activities that can really help you guys. So for the next one, what we're going to do now is we're going to work through what are the different steps that you can take. So I want you to select a food or drink item that on that list that is going to be the one that's taking you furthest away from your goal, basically, the one that you want to get on top of, okay, the one that you want to either reduce, replace, or remove from your diet. So just select what that food item is for now, and then just write that down. So you just pick one of the 2 or 3 that you've written, and then we'll push on. All right, cool. So when you select a food item that you know is just not helping, it's just, it controls you more than you control it, right? There's 3 steps that we can take. 3 R's. We can either remove, reduce, or replace. Remove. So I've got Bobby here because for Bobby it was alcohol. So he just cut it out, went full cold turkey. So this is something that you can do. You can either go full cold turkey and cut it out of your life altogether, right? A few shakes of the heads already. Cannot do that. All right. So to go cold turkey on something, it needs to be a clear-cut decision. So basically, you got to basically say that's it. So decide means to the suffix for side is to kill off, and decide is to basically cut in half to kill off, which means that you kill off the alternative decision. So clear-cut decision, quite often it can take a change of environment, which means that, you know, if you've got chips in the house and you're always eating chips and you shouldn't be eating chips or something like that, then get rid of them. You know, if soft drink's a really bad thing for you, take every can of soft drink, pour it down the sink, throw it in the bin, and then don't buy any more soft drink. Change your environment so you cannot access these foods. Quite often, a cold turkey approach takes a change of identity, and this is where, for a lot of people, it can hit a real snap point. Like with Bobby, there's a massive snap point for him to go cold turkey, to be able to change your identity, because you kind of have to shift your identity with the shift in your decision there as well. So there's some of the things. That sounds pretty full on, and that's okay because, yeah, usually it takes a big decision to completely remove something, and that would be a situation where you really do have to remove it. The next one would be to reduce. So Zane there lost 8 kilos in this picture. So it was one of our 8 and 8 weeks, which is pretty good. His one was carbs. He's a Vietnamese girlfriend that used to feed him a lot. So Matty remembers, and he'll be like, yeah, my girlfriend kept poking me. So I said, all right, don't feed me any more carbs. So he cut carbs right down, cutting back. So what they would do is now he would just have a meal on the weekend or something like that. So this is a cutback situation. Cutbacks can work in different ways. You can either reward yourself after a period of time or after you reach a goal. Okay, I'll lose the 5 kilos. Then I can reward myself with, you know, what it is that you like. Insert meal. Or after 4 weeks, insert meal, etc. So you can use time. You can either limit your serves per week. So if you're having something every day, cut it down to 2 or 3 times a week. If you're having something once a week, you might cut it back to like once a month. So once a week might be you're going out for drinks once a week. You might cut that down to a monthly thing, something like that. Or you can reduce the quantity. So for ice cream, instead of having a whole bowl of ice cream, not saying that that's what you do, Kat, but instead of having a whole bowl of ice cream, what you might do is you might just have 1 spoonful, and then you might add some fruit or yogurt or something like that, so they're better choices. So that's what we're trying to do when it comes to reducing the size or portions of that one. So reduction's one. The last one is replaced with Caden. It was quite funny. He loved chocolate milk. He just always had chocolate milk everywhere we went. I want to go get a chocolate milk. So what we did is we took out the chocolate milk, you know, those big M's with 40 grams of sugar in it, something like that. And what we did instead is we put some frozen blueberries, put some protein powder, blended it up, chucked some flaxseed oil in there as well. And he just replaced all of his milks with chocolate milks, his big M's, with his new blueberry protein shakes, and played a massive role in him losing his 20 plus kilos. And he's still in good shape, still looks like that now. He trains with Matty now, so he's doing really well. Cool, so that was an example of replacing. The really good thing about replacing is the only habit you need to change is you're changing the habit from being a poor habit to a good habit, because the habit is still there, so you don't have to remove the habit, which can be really hard. So that's really good. You're not competing with cravings, because the idea is if you want chocolate milk, well, now you're having something that kind of feels the same as chocolate milk. Okay, cool. So you don't have those cravings anymore, and you get creative. You start trying different things with food, and you start to really respect what sort of tastes and meals that you can create out of using whole foods rather than their processed or poor substitutes. So there's 3 different ways. So what we're going to do now for the next step is look at the food choice and then make a decision. And you can do this later as well, it's okay. But just, if you can, next sort of 30 seconds, think of, are you going to remove, reduce, or replace this food item, and then how you're going to do it. So for those that might already have it in their mind, I'll give you 30 seconds or just a quick period of time to whip it out on the piece of paper while it's fresh in your mind. And then we'll move forward. Any shares? Who can I point at now? Who's being a bit quiet that I can point at? A few people. Anyone want to share? How are they going to? This is a good one because now you get to say, yeah, it's what I'm going to do. So remove, reduce, replace.
So
Yep.
I've done it slightly differently.
Sure.
I will not eat lunch at work at my desk because and I'm always working while I'm eating lunch, so I will actually eat
Mindful eating.
in the kitchen.
Yes.
I'm not trying to do 5 things at once and just
Yeah, really good for digestion too. So you take your time with your meals, let it digest slowly, much better nutrient assimilation and much better for your digestion. So that could play a big role too. Yeah, guys who eat in the car, guys who scoff down their lunches while working, stuff like that. And then later on, they're like, oh, I've got these digestion issues. It's like, well, and they don't know what it is because they think they're eating good food, which they probably are and stuff like that. But then they realize, oh, holy crap, well, it's probably because I'm scoffing down while I've got this stress, while I've got this workload, while I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. And yeah, and it actually goes a lot deeper, which we won't go into today, but there's a lot more depth to how your brain actually registers food that goes in your mouth too. But yeah, very interesting. So that's a good one, Rach. Very nice. Very good. So 30 seconds, cool. And then how will you change this habit? Well, I just kind of ask you guys that anyway. Cool. Excellent. So habit loops there, which is your cue, response, reward. So that's basically when something triggers you to eat, the response from that. So we sort of covered that a bit before, Lorraine, with the meals is when you get that stress or when something sort of cues you, okay, what's a different response? And this is where replace is really handy. That's why I put this under replace, is that you now have a different response. Between, Viktor Frankl talks about stimulus and response, and there's a gap in the middle of stimulus. So, and that's your decision in the middle there. So that's what that one is there. And then the reward at the end there has to make you feel good for you to want to do it again. Does it make sense? So that's what that one talks about. Cool. Step 2. This is simple, feeding window. The reason why I'm there is this was the biggest thing. I used to do sort of a lot of meals and eat quite late and quite early. And I didn't give my digestion enough rest time. Once I made sure I had 12 hours between my meals over the course of bedtime, the whole thing just changed. It was ridiculous. Obviously, a few other little smaller ones, but most of my meals, as I was talking about before, and pointing out Matty to confirm, because he saw me every single day, was to say, yeah, pretty much everything was right, but for some reason it wasn't. This was a big change. So I found this worked really, really well. Having a window from your meals is going to give that rest and digest time, a time for your digestion to rest up. So we're going to select the breakfast time. Some guys who enjoy fasting and like doing the 16-8 stuff like that, it's okay. I'm not saying anything you can or can't do. It's all a matter of fitting it with your puzzle to match the metabolic results that you want. So that might be at lunchtime, which could be 12 p.m. That's fine. If breakfast is lunch, breakfast just means break fast. That's why it's called breakfast. And then when you finish. So all you're doing is you're selecting a time, and you can write it down now if you've got it in your mind, when you're going to have your first meal, when you're going to have your last meal, just making sure there's a reasonable gap either side of that. And I'd strongly encourage for that gap to be during your sleeping period and not during the day. So for a few different reasons, but we don't need to go into that. It's quite obvious. All right. So And then from there, now I've got 2 to 4 meal times on the sheet. I'm happy to stick with that rather than the 3 here. But basically the idea of that is that if you're eating 1 meal a day at the moment, go up to 2. If you're eating 2 meals a day, go up to 3, 3 to 4. One of those can be a shake if that's the case. If you're already eating 4 or 5 meals, you don't need to add any more. I think that's plenty. But the idea is if we can spread our meals over, a couple of over an extra meal, it just gives us a digestion, a bit more time to break these foods down. We're going to eat better foods. We're going to give ourselves a better chance to absorb the nutrients. They're going to help our metabolism work effectively. Because remember, we're looking at our cellular health and we're looking at our gut health. We're looking at our hormonal balances. These are all factors. And when you do eat the right foods, which we'll go through in the next step, you're going to find you'll be within your calorie surplus, calorie deficit anyway, for the most part, for most people. Cool. So selecting your 3 meal times or selecting meal times that you're going to eat. Obviously, that's got to fit in the puzzle of your lifestyle, which for most people is their working hours. Fair enough. If you're not sure because you've got work days and weekends, do your work days because that's where you spend most of your week. Weekends might be 1 or 2 days. Work days for most people is 5 or 6 days. So pick what's more predominant for you. Step 3, this is the part that people start to get a bit, start to enjoy because now it's like metabolic meals. They start to learn a bit. Correct carb choice. So now we're going to look at, okay, how do I construct these meals to be effective? The correct carb choice, we're going to look at, there's higher energy carbs and there's also the lower energy carbs, which we'll touch on in a minute. Now, high energy carbs are typically anything that's grain food, so your oats, your barley, your wheat, your rice, all those different types of grain foods are going to be considered in your higher energy carb group, okay? Anything that's processed, even if it says on the packaging low carb, the fact that it's processed means your body will be able to assimilate the nutrients pretty easily, right? Because remember, our body works to break down these nutrients when we're looking at good whole foods. I've added banana and potato, so it can kind of be half and half between because they are kind of high energy dense than your other plant foods or your other whole foods. So that's your high energy carb list. You predominantly look at having your carbs kind of after a workout, replacing muscle glycogen, or you might add in a handful at one of your meals during the day. The idea of the carbs is to measure the amount that works for you where you don't feel fatigued from not having the carbs, okay? But then you don't also put on weight for having too much carbs. So you'll find that balance. That's what we help you do when we take you on through this process. Low energy carbs, pretty much all your whole food, fruit and veg will predominantly fit in that category. These are the ones that you can just pretty much add on to every single meal and just eat whatever you're comfortable eating, really. Get a rainbow effect, get plenty of different colors. That's how you get all your different nutrients. They're your low energy carbs. Now, the question might be beans, seeds, and legumes. This one's a little bit tricky. They're high in fiber. They also have a bit of protein. They also have quite a lot of carb as well. Where does that fit? It's probably somewhere between the high and low energy. The hard thing about beans, and this is where a lot of vegetarians might eat a lot of beans to get the protein, but because of the amount of fiber in them, it can be hard to eat that much. So just eat enough where you kind of add it into some of your meals. You don't need to go over the top with it. And if you do have way too much, you can just get pretty heavy after a while because of the fiber content. So I just thought I'd just wrap that up because beans, seeds, legumes is something that people are kind of like, well, where does that fit? How does that work? So I thought I'd wrap that up for you. The next part of step 3 is protein. We're looking at both the quality and the quantity. Quality, good amino acid profile, and lean cuts, which is basically less than 10% fat, to give you a rule of thumb. Quantity. Now, this will be determined by your current consumption. Why do I say that? If you're only eating like 50 grams of carbs a day and 50 grams of protein a day, and I'm telling you that you should have 120, to jump from 50 to 120, you can imagine what's going to go on in here. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be comfortable, right? So you would only slowly increase that maybe by about 25% every couple of weeks. So that's why current consumption would matter. So to your daily activity level, the more active you are, the more protein you're going to require. Your goal, are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to gain muscle? Or if you're someone who's really serious, like if you're in competition, whether it be sport or bodybuilding or you'll need more than 2 grams a day. So this would be a starting point rather than a finishing point. Does that make sense? So you're looking at, okay, the different goals, all of these things matter. So for you guys, what we're going to look at, and we can do this now, this will be in your next worksheet. We'll be working this out. You can probably just do it to the right-hand side there. But we're going to go A, quantity. So how many grams per kilogram per day? So to give you an idea, just to help you guys with this one, 1.2 to 2. If you are sedentary, you're looking to lose weight, and you're typically sedentary, you're looking to lose body weight, you're probably looking at about that 1.2 to 1.4 mark. If you're a bit more active and you want to build or retain some muscle as well, 1.4, 1.6. If you're now starting to be quite active during the day and you're looking at maintain muscle, put on muscle, push that up towards 2. If you're quite serious about body transformation or you play competitive sport, then yeah, you'll be looking at 2+. So just gives you a bit of an idea. Whatever you write down at the moment, don't worry if you think it might be wrong. It's okay. We'll work with it for the moment, just to give you guys a bit of an idea of how we work this out, and then we can help you out later on. Okay? Cool. So let's work that out. Put down, let's just say if it's 1.5, we'll go 1.5 grams per kilogram per day. Ideal body weight is how much kilograms? Cool. So you might be 85, but if your goal weight is 80, put down 80 kilos, and that's what we'll work from. So what we're looking here is total protein. 1.5 times 80, A times B equals C. So that'll be 120 grams in this case. Total protein, 120 grams for the day. But I won't throw numbers and confuse you guys. You can sort of work it out and for your own case. From there, D, we just did this exercise. How many meals a day do we have? All right. Put that one in. And then our final equation is C divided by D. So it's how much protein per day. Let's just say I was 120. And I'm eating 4 meals a day. I'm having about 30 grams of protein per meal. Cool. And then what happens from there is we start to become familiar with what that looks like. Okay, and that would be another time. Does that help everyone? Has everyone sort of got their amount per meal that they're looking for, or amount per day that they're looking for with their protein? Yeah, you got a question, Tam? No?
Well, it was say for example, 1.5.
Yeah.
And my ideal body weight.
Yeah. Yep.
And then that gives you a grams, then divide that by
3 meals, yep, perfect, that's it. And then we're looking at how much protein per meal. So it gives you a good sort of rule of thumb as to what to look at protein-wise. If you're well below that at the moment, I would encourage just build up to it. Don't just jump to it. But if you might get away with just jumping to it, but some people might find that it really affects them with their digestion. The last one is the fats. The omega-3 to 6 ratio is a really big one here, and that is try and get plenty of omega-3 in there. Linoleic acid is your plant food. You're looking at things like chia seeds, flaxseed oil, leafy greens, really, really good. EPA, DHA, pretty much all your different fish, and pretty much, all your different fish. So they're your marine source. So what you want to do is you want to get a balance between marine and plant. You don't want to just have it all from one, especially getting the EPA, DHA in there. So omega-3 is really, really important, especially reducing inflammation in the body, massive. So making sure that one. And it does also mean, things like, even though things like avocados and extra virgin olive oil, things like that, which are really good, definitely include those in your diet. It might not directly improve the omega-3 ratio, but it still have a lot of benefits as well, their own benefits. So still include those. We're looking at essential fats, so omega-6 and the omega-3s, but we also got to make sure that that ratio doesn't get out of control, because we already have plenty of omega-6 in our diet. So it's the omega. So we make good omega-6 choices, but we make sure that we get plenty of omega-3 to top that off. Does that make sense? Yep. If you don't eat fish, yeah. So fish oil tablets, so you might need a supplement, yeah, if you don't eat it. To get the EPA, DHA, so look for something that's 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA combined. It'll be 2-to-1 ratio between EPA to DHA. Yep. Yep. Cool. So next one is don't be afraid of saturated fats. Okay, things like coconut oil. I'm trying to think of a couple of others like grass-fed butter. Really, really good things to add into your food. Really good to cook with, because those foods they're quite stable. So if you have something like olive oil or flaxseed oil and you start cooking with those, it can destabilize and hydrogenate really quickly. We don't want that. We want to cook with stable oils. So instead, avoid trans fats, vegetable and hydrogenated oils, because they're the ones that are going to inflame the body and they're the ones that can really make you sick. So they're the ones that you want to avoid when it comes to fats. So that gives you an idea of each one of those: carb choice, protein choice, and omega-3 choice, or essential fat choice. Used to roll in omega-3 off the tongue, but different fats as well. Quality and quantity for the protein. Choosing between your high and low energy carbs, when to have those, especially the high energy, and then your essential fats, covering your essential fats and the omega-3s. Cool. All right, so that gives you the metabolic meals. Any questions on the metabolic meals? Because that's a lot to cover, and there's a lot of nuance and depth that that into that. So that will be something that we'll go into, guys, a little bit more into in its own. Yeah. Well, what it is, it's a higher energy choice. So that's what you got to consider. So when you're looking at probably for breakfast, because if you're having because at breakfast time, what's happening is your blood sugars are actually quite, you're quite sensitive, you're quite insulin sensitive at that time. So what you want to do is you actually want to be leaning more towards proteins and fats at that time. Then something like oats and banana, which would be considered foods that, even though you're quite low GI, because when it comes to your blood sugar response, there's the glycemic index of the food and the amount that you're having as well. So if it's a small amount, you probably get away with it and it's okay, especially if you're having other foods with it. Does it make sense? So it can kind of extend out that digestion. So you'll get but when it's when it's something that's low GI but a big amount, then that's when you can still get quite a high glycemic response at a time when you're quite insulin sensitive, which is kind of what we want to avoid. But a little bit of oats at a time where it's quite low GI and you don't have the quantity to get such an insulin spike, you should be able to keep that insulin response quite relatively stable. Does that make sense? So quarter a cup, I'll try and look at. You mentioned protein before, so if you've got something high protein with it, high fat with it, you might add some flaxseed oil or linseed or something like that. Really good choices. Tofu in there, so protein, bit of protein in that, So and then maybe have some fats, because fats slow down digestion, so that could help with assimilating that food over time and reducing the blood sugar response. So that could be a way that you could do that for breakfast. Cool. The next one is sleep and stress. The reason I brought this up is this is where it all happens, really. What governs the sleep-wake cycle? So you can see here for this graph that I borrowed from N10, which is a coaching course I did, the white is your cortisol and the yellow is your melatonin. So they worked in direct opposite to each other. So whenever you spike cortisol, melatonin is reduced, and then conversely, as cortisol drops, melatonin lifts. Now, there's a couple of things to that. One, we don't want to spike cortisol at a time when we're trying to get melatonin up. The other thing as well is if we can spike cortisol ahead of time, it can actually achieve a better melatonin response later on in the day or at night. Is that making sense? So if you're doing a workout during the day, this is why where some guys, they do a workout, spike cortisol, it can actually help with their sleeping later on at night, along with that adenosine response too. But in terms of this graph, that can really help. So when we're looking at different things that can help with sleep easy activities, exercise and sunlight early in the day have a massive, if you can go out for a walk, for a half-hour walk, 20-minute walk early in the day, it's going to help you sleep massively at night, big time. So that's really, really handy. Other sleep easy activities could be a caffeine curfew, because caffeine, I mentioned adenosine before, blocks the receptors of adenosine. Adenosine is that thing that makes you feel tired. So that's why if you're having caffeine, it's going to stop you feeling tired. That's the reason. You don't have to remember all that crap, but it just kind of helps you understand, okay, that's why coffee has that effect. So having a caffeine curfew, because it builds up over time. So it takes a long time for that caffeine to sort of be out of our system. Blue light curfew, another one, because of the melatonin response, it's going to block the melatonin. So what we want to do is we want to go, okay, if we're on our laptops at 10 o'clock at night, your melatonin production is being halted. So we don't want that. We want our melatonin to spike. So have a blue light curfew. It doesn't help while we're looking at a TV screen right now and it's nearly 8 o'clock. But yeah, blue light curfew, typically speaking. Your last meal at least a couple of hours before bed. If you've got blood sugars up and about because you've eaten a meal just before bed, that's going to affect your sleep. And same with alcohol as well. Just remember too, guys, even if you fall asleep, it can still affect your REM cycles, okay, which is a big part of your sleep too. You don't have to remember all this stuff, but just remember that this can, even if you do fall asleep and you have a coffee at 9 o'clock at night, but you can still fall asleep, it can still affect your sleep. So it can affect how you feel when you wake up. So these things will be effective whether or not you're getting good sleep or not. And supplements can help. So different supplements, teas can help as well. Ashwagandha, magnesium glycinate, a couple of different supplements that can really help. L-theanine as well. So these are all things that help relax the body and the brain to help you fall asleep. Creating sleep, so teas, you got valerian root, you got different chamomile teas, different lots of teas that can help as well. Creating your sleep sanctuary, make sure your room is pitch black. Get it down to 19 degrees if you can, so you're going to have to put the aircon on when you get home. For those on the camera, it's like watching the video, it's about 38 degrees today. Removing electronics from around your bed. So this is actually a big one because electromagnetic waves can definitely affect your sleep. So if you've got your phone next to you while you're sleeping, that can be a problem. So you might want to get that out of the room or move it away from you. And then a big one is consistent bedtime. Try and get to sleep, try and get to bed at the same time every night. So there's a few steps that can improve your sleeping, and there's even more steps than that we can take as well. But that just gives you guys a few things that you can do. In your sheets, there it says write down 3 things that can improve your sleep. Don't have to do that right now. You can follow that later on if you like. But if you can keep this in the back of your mind, this list, maybe you can chuck a couple down later on that you can think of. Stressless activities, things like journaling, just getting your mind clear. Meditation and yoga, same thing, using breathing as well to do that. We've got the yoga classes going now too, by the way, which is pretty cool. Thanks, Jenny. So they look pretty cool. Light exercise. So this is where I was talking before about the lymphatic system, removing crap out of your body. That's what the light exercise does. It helps actually with your recover and helps removing the stress in the body. And adaptogens, so supplements, so things like ginseng, ashwagandha again, different adaptogens that can help with regulating your hormones and your body there. So they're really important too. In moments of stress, so in stressful moments, there's breathing techniques, and counting techniques can count with that as well. Outside in viewpoint, what I mean by that is you, instead of being sort of in the moment, like, you just step back, move away, and then you kind of take, yeah, I can get pretty angry, so that might have scared a few people. But if you take sort of a bird's eye view of the situation and then objectively view the situation and from a longer time horizon, these are things that's like, oh, I'm angry right now, but in 5 hours from now, 5 minutes from now, it's not even going to matter, let alone 5 hours, let alone 5 days, let alone 5 years, right? So why the hell am I angry? It's just stupid. Like, it makes you feel dumb, makes you feel stupid, but that's what you got to do sometimes to make it go, yeah, all right, yeah, that was pretty silly, Matt. But anyway, so outside in viewpoint can really, really help with moments of stress. And exercise, great one. If you're stressed out, you've already got cortisol up. Exercise really increases cortisol too. So why not just go downstairs, put the gloves on and smack the bag for half an hour? It's absolutely fine. You might as well make the most of that cortisol, and you might as well get yourself fit in the meantime. So exercise is a great thing to do in moments of stress too. Cellular and gut health. This is the next step that we take. Micronutrient checklist is something that we go through in a bit more detail. Microbiome checklist, pre and probiotics, fermented foods that digest, time to digest, circadian cycles I mentioned before. Limit antibiotic use, really important. Okay, only go there if you really, really have to. And if it continues to be a problem, that's where you may need to see someone that deals with functional medicine. Cool. Now the last steps, I just kind of accelerated through to here because if stress and sleep is a real problem, we'll work with it with you individually, if that makes sense. So, and provide some of those techniques. But the 6 steps is really important because these are the success secrets. These are the ones that I think that a lot of people miss. And this is where I think this is the real game changer from what we can implement. That's different to a lot of different options. So avoiding the metabolic slowdown, we touched on this earlier. So this is an example of someone whose calorie intake was, let's say, roughly 2,500. The metabolic output was nearly the same, and their relative body weight was quite relative. So you can see that their calorie intake is slightly above their metabolic output, which slightly increases their relative body weight. So they're getting to a point where they're like, oh, I'm putting on body, I'm getting heavier, this isn't good, I'm getting scared. So then what they do is they go, I'm going to go on a calorie deficit diet and go to 1,500 calories. So what happens now is their body weight drops and they're getting all excited. The only problem is there's this delay here where their metabolic output is also dropping too. And then what eventually happens is their metabolic output drops all the way down to their calorie intake. And now this isn't to any sort of scale. This is just to give you guys a bit of a visual. But eventually what happens is they get to a point where they're either cravings kick in or they just give up or they just have a mental breakdown that makes them binge eat. And now they're back up to 3,000 calories back where they were, and their body weight, same thing, goes up above what they were before as well. So this is what happens a lot to a lot of people, and this is avoiding the metabolic slowdown. How do we avoid the metabolic slowdown? Cool. What we do is not only do we go slightly below with your calorie intake. Remember, this is when steps 1 to 5 have been completed. If anything in steps 1 to 5 aren't on track, we've got to get those steps done first before we can worry about this. Does it make sense? Yeah, because otherwise, you know, your cellular health, your microbiome, or whatever it may be, may affect this graph. So you can see that metabolic output actually slowly increases. Holy crap, interesting. Or calorie intake rather slowly increases. So we actually increase the amount of food that you have, but we do it in such a controlled manner that actually increases your metabolic output at the same time, and then your relative body weight actually just drops slowly. So this is where you do need to do it over a period of time. Is that making sense, guys? Cool. So this is the smarter way, and this is the way that we can do it while affecting the metabolism. So that's secret number 1. The secret number 2 is the fuel shift. What this is, you don't have to worry too much about this breakdown here. It's probably a little bit sciencey for a lot of people. But basically what it means is that your body is used to using carbohydrates. And then when you're not feeding the body the same amount of carbohydrates or glucose it normally gets, your body has to break down fatty acids instead to use for energy. Now, because it's not the preferred fuel source, you're going to go through some of those symptoms that I mentioned before with the low carb, all that sort of stuff. And it can be quite challenging. And this is where we need to make sure that we get this balance right with the fuel shift, because if we don't and we cut down too much, then we start breaking down muscle tissue. And that's what I was talking about, that metabolic slowdown. So you can see how these steps create some of the effects that we explained earlier. If you're not following me, that's okay. We've got it on video. You can come back and watch it again. I'm sure some of you are following me. Some of you are like, oh, I think he's a bit far now. That's okay. We'll keep pushing on though. So the fuel shift with a limited supply of glucose, blah, blah, blah. I just mentioned all that. You might feel lightheaded, brain fog, low energy. So these are things, usually these things kick in after about 4 or 6 weeks of really sticking to something pretty well. Through my experience, it's usually sort of when I see guys go through that, once they've really followed the plan to the letter. It affects endocrine function and add carbs immediately. So if you do find yourself affecting your hormones, definitely get those carbs in straight away. The invisible success zone, this is probably the hardest thing for guys to go through. It's basically when there's a lot of chemical reactions going on in the body and things are happening, your metabolism is improving, but you're just not seeing it. You're like, oh, why can't I see anything? Be patient, stick it out, it will work, and you will get the benefits at the end of it if you keep pushing through. Just stick to the process so you know what works, and you'll get there in the end. Improving insulin sensitivity, enhancing your ability to use nutrients, hormonal balance, increasing muscle, and other broader health improvements as well. So that's the invisible success zone. So they're the 3 success secrets that a lot of people don't address that we will address when you get to that stage of the program. Cool. So what do you need to achieve the 6 steps? Accountability, staying on track, staying focused, identifying the constraints, which will let go of all that frustration. We need to find strategies that work for you so you can approach this with confidence, so you can fit in your lifestyle. We need a step-by-step instruction, so it's clear. The plan is clear to you. You're not confused at all. Cool. So what we do in the Metabolic Mastery with the program is each step is documented in a detailed booklet, okay? So I've got booklets written up for every step here. We do regular check-ins with you, kind of like we do at the moment. So check-in consultation with a scan. We'll get the scanner back in soon. Nutrient guidelines towards your goals. And with those included as a bonus for Core V members. So how exciting, because all of you guys here are Core V members, so you're all going to get this, which is pretty nifty, pretty handy. So we're going to include this program for you. So that's a pretty cool bonus. If you did want to do the 12-week Metabolic Mastery program, which is where we help you, okay, and provide all of the above, plus 1 hour nutrition consult each week, round-the-clock accountability and support, which our cheapest personal train option is $180 a week for 2 sessions. All right, that's $90 a session effectively. So this is one 1 hour session a week where we talk setting up your whole nutrition. Times that by 12, it's well over $1,000. So it'll be well over $1,000 value once we start to add up everything else as well. So quite easily that. So 12-week Metabolic Mastery, we'll also throw in the 2 weeks of Core V. So if you're currently doing it, we'll just pause your thing for 2 weeks. 2 PT sessions. To make up for that, for guys who are more than 24, we'll just do 2 PT sessions with you myself. To make up for that, 2 PT sessions, which will be kind of like the intro pack if guys haven't done it yet for new guys. For existing guys, we can add those in on top of that. And it's something that we're going to run for February only. Okay, cool. $997. Pretty damn good value. And tonight, I thought I changed it to $797. All right, well, maybe from the typo, $697. Otherwise, the other thing too is if you did want to do buddy bonuses, so a couple of guys doing it together, we can do some deals there as well. You guys all train with us. I'm sure we can work out some different things for you guys. Oh, there it is. I changed it on that side, but I didn't change it on this side. Yeah, anyway. But we'll work something out for you guys. So, yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, definitely let us know because the Metabolic Mastery is going to be really, really good. You do pretty much get you get it sent out through email and you get the booklets as part of doing Core V, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like an added bonus for you guys. For this, if you want to do the Metabolic Mastery, we've got to throw in not only a weekly 1 hour consult with one of us, but you're also going to get 2 weeks of Core V added on along with 2 PT sessions too, as a bit of a bonus for tonight too. So yeah, very good. That's it, guys. So,